Sunday School of 2024. We stand on the edge of the year, the edge of 2024, and look forward to 2025 and all that it brings. There's nothing special about January 1st, other than it being, one trip around the sun for us. But the same can be said for any 12-month period. This New Year's really could be any day of the year, going back 12 months. But actually, it's 12 months and a quarter, which is why we had the leap year. So every 4 years, we add that extra day to make sure that we're there. But New Year's started, as with most things, with the Romans. Julius Caesar, if you're familiar with something called the Julian calendar, that's kind of what we had for a while. And he put the New Year's on January 1st. And that was to align it with the god of their god of Janus, the god of new beginnings. So it was more of a pagan type of celebration. It was then kind of moved around in the medieval times. Sometimes it was on Christmas Day. Sometimes they moved it to Easter, obviously to coincide with whoever Christian area was in power at the time, Orthodox or regular. But then we enter Pope Gregory. So we would say that we are on the Gregorian calendar. And he steps on the scene in the 1500s. And in actuality, the 12-month and a quarter really gives you a little bit more. So if you look at the exact time period, it's 12 months, a quarter, with a rounding error. And so what happens is that rounding error, every century, you lose a day. So you look at this, from the time of Julius Caesar to the time of Pope Gregory, there was about 14 days that we were behind. So essentially what he did was, kind of set things straight, and there's a lot of little rules that he puts in place, but, we get upset about daylight savings time and how we lose an hour's sleep. Imagine losing 14 days. So on October 4th, 1582, that next morning you woke up, it was October 15th, 1582. So you can imagine, probably all the kids was excited about that, a little bit closer to Christmas, but you just kind of lost time. It just was something that they did. And of course, he added some rules in place where leap year to occur so that we don't really have to do that like we have to every time. But that is where we are today. But for us, New Year's is always a time of self-reflection. It's always a time to inventory the last 12 months, to see where there were some wins in the year, to see where there were some losses. Are you on track? Are you doing the things that you need to do to get to where you want to be? Are you doing the things in your life that you want, that you're trying to accomplish? Are you maximizing the time that you have? And inevitably, we do the time-honored tradition of the New Year's resolution. Now, resolution seems to fall in two categories. And I'm going to do, what I'm going to do more of in 2025, and then what I'm going to do less of in 2025. So there's always this, I'm going to do more, I'm going to do less. Statistics would tell you that only about a third of us will keep our resolution after that first month. And anyone that goes to the gym would tell you that on first month of January, that gym is packed full. But if you just wait a couple weeks, then it's going to slowly fall out. It's going to slowly fall away. In fact, the Planet Fitness people make their whole business model about that, about signing you up on the first day of the month and new year, new you, knowing that you're going to stop after that first month, but you're going to still keep paying that fee. They would say after 3 months, about a tenth of us will continue with the resolution. So, and this makes sense. By definition, a New Year's resolution is a change from the way that we were doing things. It's different. It's something that you haven't incorporated in your life. It's something that you're trying to do more of. It's something you're trying to do less of. Change is difficult. We are creatures of inertia. We are creatures of habit. We typically stick to the things that we're going to do how we've always done them. And we will always seek the easy way. And this is something that is kind of hardwired in us. We don't want to do the hard things. That takes a lot of effort. That takes a lot of calories. That takes a lot of work. We want to do what's easy. We're going to do the things that become easy to us. It's not fun getting up early and going to the gym, or to carve out that extra time to read your Bible, or to spend that extra time in prayer. It's a difficult thing. And anyone who's played the game of Simon Says as a kid, you get used to doing a certain thing, and your body just goes on autopilot. So when you do they Simon says this, Simon says that, Simon says this, Simon says that, and you're just moving along with the flow as it goes. But your body just keeps going, and all of a sudden that thing happens, but wait, Simon didn't say. So it's something that for us, you really have to make an effort to make a change if you're going to do something different than the way you've always done. And as we look to 2025, we are here to pursue that spiritual part of our lives. As the scroll of time unfolds for us, in this world we realize we need more of God. We know as Christians, God is the key that the rest of our lives rest upon. In Matthew 6:33, I'm going to lean on you, Sister Angie. I don't quite have my... But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. As Christians, God is key. Everything we do rests upon that base, that foundation that of God. Jeremiah gives us this promise in Jeremiah 29:12-13. Then shall ye call upon me, and ye shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you. And ye shall seek me and find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart. It's a calling. It's a prayer. It's a seeking. And when it's done with your whole heart, that's when you will find God. When you see, and when you look at the Bible, when you see the anything that refers to heart, the whole heart, or things like that, the Jewish concept of heart was not like here. That's kind of our modern way of thinking about things. Their concept of heart was more of like your guts. It was something internal. It was something that was in your innermost being. It was something that just moved it was inside of you. So it's seeking God, it's pursuing God with everything we have, with our whole heart, with our whole innermost part of us. We pursue God, and if we pursue God, we will find him. Jesus tells us in James 4-8, or chapter 4:8, draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Double-minded means doubting. When we go to God, when we pursue God, God will pursue us. God will meet you halfway. And I think that when you look at 2024, there are some of us that can say the blessings of God was on my life. And some may say, where was God? We all have our like I said, our yearly inventory. We all look at things, and there are some, we look at things, and some of us can say without a doubt that God has blessed them, and it was a good year for them. Others would maybe say the opposite. Where was God for me? This year was not my best year. There are some things I wish I would have done. There's some things that I should not have done. But when I considered these two thoughts, I thought about the story of Joseph. We see a young man. The Bible states that he was 17 years old in Genesis 37:3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. God gives Joseph a dream. In 37:7, it says, for behold, we were binding, this is the dream that Joseph had. We were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood around about, and made obeisance to my sheep. They bowed down to Joseph. So, and they reconfirm another dream in verse 9. But this is, Joseph was a kid that had the love of his father. The father, Israel loved him the most. He even starts to receive dreams that he was going to exceed his brothers. He was going to exceed his parents, that his parents and his brothers were going to bow down to him. This was a young man with a bright future. I was thinking about this today. Is like, he set up in a way back in those times probably better than some of us today. I didn't quite have a father that was there at all times, but this was a young man that had his father and had his love and had these dreams of this great thing that was going to happen for him. Yet, when envy entered the minds of his brothers, and you can hear the jealousy, you can hear the envy. When you read the Bible in Genesis 37, 18 through 20. And when they, the brothers, saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said to one another, Behold, the dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. So you can hear this sarcasm. You can hear this envy, this jealousy, where the brothers, what do you mean that our youngest brother was going to exceed us? This is the Joseph that has Dad's eye. He got the coat of many colors. That we're all brother. We're all sons of Israel. Where's my coat of many colors? What makes Joseph so special? And we're going to see what this dreamer thinks about. We're going to see if his dreams truly are correct when we slay him, when we kill him. Let's see what becomes of his dreams. And this is an ancient sin. Jealousy goes all the way back to Cain and Abel. In the first murder, it was jealousy. It was envy. It was something that they were jealous of what the other brother had. In Proverbs 14:30, it says, A sound heart is the life of flesh, but envy the rottenness of the bones. Another version would say that envy is rottenness to the bones. There's something about envy that gets inside of you. It eats away the things it gets to your bones. It eats away the things that it's something that just festers. And it grows, and it grows. And you have to take care of that. If you don't, it's like I said, it's almost like a cancer. If you don't take care of it at the quick, it's going to keep going. This envy is going to continue to go. So the brothers threw him in a pit. And they were sure to take Joseph's coat of many colors, which symbolized the love of the Father. A note here, when you see jealousy and envy in your life, they'll never say it, and they may not even know it themselves, but it's always the love of the Father that they don't have. It's always the blessing that you have. It's always the God that God loves you. You know that God, the Father in your life is there. The blessings, that your coat of many colors that they see. So when jealousy comes and envy, it's not really you. It's their own lack. It's not what you have, it's what they don't have and what they want. And of course, this is where God can come into their lives, and as Christians, we are an example of the Father's love and of a life that could be with the love of God in their life. It's a cry of what they don't have, that it's absent of the Father's love in their life. And the brothers sold Joseph to Midianite traders, to eventually be sold into slavery to Egypt in the house of Potiphar. In Genesis 39:2, yet the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. wait, Joseph was almost killed. He was ripped from his family. He was living the life of a slave in a land that he was not from. Yet the Lord was with him. The Lord was with Joseph. No matter where you are at, the Lord is with you. No matter what valley you're in, the Lord is with you. There's a concept of blooming where you're planted. And it's no matter how bleak of a situation you're in, God will prosper you. Wherever you're at, God will allow you to bloom in where you're at. This may not be where you want to be. This may not be, you may be going through some things that you don't need to, it's a struggle. But you know what? You can still bloom where you're planted. And God will still be with you. God will still prosper you no matter where you are. No matter how bleak of the situation, God will prosper you. So much for Joseph that he was promoted. In Genesis 39, 3 through 4. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him. He made him overseer over his house and all that he had put into his hands. Now understand, Joseph was a slave. He could have resisted. He could have resisted his master. He could have said, I'm not doing this. This is not what I'm going to do. But instead, he was subject to where he was in that season of his life. And God prospered him. And it showed so much that when the master saw that God was with him, there was something different. There's something different about Joseph. There's something different about what he has. I can see that there's something there that, I'm going to put him at the peak of my household. Now, obviously, he's still a slave, but he's being promoted. Joseph is #blessed. And here, temptation rears its head. And in verse 7, it says, Potiphar's wife cast her eyes on Joseph, and she said, lie with me. In Genesis 39:9, and Joseph says, there is none greater in this house than I. Neither hath the master kept back anything from me but you, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Joseph said, I'm over everything. I have access to everything in this house except you. How can I do this great evil? And not sin against the master, but sin against God. It was integrity. It was something inside of Joseph that said, I can't do this not because of what I'm going to do to you or because of what I'm going to do to God. It's because I can't sin against God. It's unclear to me what power she had over Joseph. It's common for masters to have access to slaves in that certain way. But here Joseph speaks to his integrity that says, and more importantly, I can't sin against God. It was almost an ancient Me Too situation where she continues to try to lie with Joseph to the point where she accuses him of assault. And in Genesis 39:20, and Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. And here we see Joseph. Look at his 2024. If anyone could ask where God was, it was Joseph in his life. I was in a loving family with God-given dreams. I had a bright future. I was almost killed by my brothers. I was sold into slavery, doing everything right, following the word of God, and here I am bound in prison. I could have just done what the master, what Potiphar's wife told me to do. It would have been easy. We would have just, but yet here I am in prison. He could have thrown in the towel. And like Job's wife, he could have cursed God and died. And no one would have blamed Joseph. If you looked at Joseph's life, if that was you, man, that's a lot. To go through that, it's a lot. Yet, in Genesis 39:21, but the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So here Joseph is again. The Lord was with Joseph. And when I look at this, we think of prisons today in a modern era. This was ancient prison. This was not a fun place. This is not like Danish prison where you have video games and TVs and all the things that they would have. This was hard time. This was an Egyptian prison in the ancient world. Whatever that, even the king, if you were to look at the Pharaoh's life, you would probably not want that life compared to what you have now. And this is the people in the prison of that time. So this was hard time. This was a very, I can't imagine what that would be like, but yet the Lord was with Joseph, and he showed him mercy. And if God be for us, who can be against us? And we know this story. While in prison, Joseph begins to interpret the dreams, using his gifting with those that are around him. And when the cupbearer butler makes it back to Pharaoh, and when there's a dream that when Pharaoh has a dream that could not be interpreted, he remembered a young Hebrew boy that did him a kindness in prison. That he did some time with back in the day, that was able to interpret dreams. He remembered that. Of course, wasn't initially. He didn't tell him, and then he went back and told him. But when I think of these things, I think about the little things that we do for people, and where, I think about the prayer requests we get, and imagine God doing a work for someone that didn't deserve it. Of course, we all don't deserve it, but let's say an unbeliever. We have these. We had the prayer requests of people. Again, I'm sure I remember Pastor talking about it, how people get prayed for and they don't get healed, and these are, believers. Yet we've got someone walking in the street, and we pray for them and they get healed, and then we don't see them ever again. We look at that and we struggle with that. Yet we don't know what's going to happen from that. We don't know what is sown in that, where that seed is sown. We don't know if there's a time when that person goes and says, I remember a church that prayed for me and I was healed. If you're going through the same thing, you should go to this church. Or, there was a God that did something. And this is the situation here where, Joseph was gifting he was blooming where he was planted. He was doing the things that he was gifting in with the people in the prison. And I wonder that if we did that for those around us, the little things, the little prayers, what will that grow to? Will that grow to a Pharaoh? Would that grow to someone in power? Would that grow to someone that could materially affect your life? I would want someone that while salvation may not come, they can still speak of the goodness of God to somewhere, and somewhere it's going to be someone's going to be receptive to that love, and they're going to come in based on the little things that we do. We never know what little prayers can do, but it's Joseph doing what he can, working in the gifting that he has, blooming where God has put him. And we see Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dream. And as a result, he is made ruler in Egypt. In Genesis 41, chapter 41, 41 through 42. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in the vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. He was married to a high-ranking Egyptian noble. And he was married into nobility, and he has two sons. In Genesis chapter 41, 50 through 52. And unto Joseph were born two sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, the priest of On, bare him unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He hath made me forget all my suffering in all my father's house. The name of the second he called Ephraim, for God have caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Of course, we know the meaning. We know in the Bible, the meaning of names is everything. And I realize that there is some interesting symbolism here. Here, Manasseh is saying, God is forgetting my trouble, and in my father's house. It's taking away those things that has passed. And Ephraim is saying, God has made me fruitful in my affliction. In Genesis 48, there's a story, chapter 48, where we find Israel. This is after things. This is his dad is sick. And it's that time where you've got to do that traditional blessing. You have to pass on the blessing. And, so Joseph takes Manasseh and puts it in Israel's right hand. The right hand is the hand of power. That's where the most blessing comes. And then he puts Ephraim in the left hand. And Israel switches. He takes his hands and he switches. And Joseph said, no, Dad, you got it wrong. Manasseh is the firstborn. He's the one that's going to get the blessing. And Israel says, no, I see Ephraim, and I see his future, and I see that he's going to be a blessing. He's going to get the greater part. And this is my Chris Davis version, interpretation. Take it as you will. But what it's saying here is that there's greater blessing in affliction. It's in the trials and hardships that lead us to growth and reliance on God. It's in the valleys of life where your connection to God deepens. It's where you learn God. You learn things about yourself. You learn things about God. We lean more on God and experience God's faithfulness firsthand. And Joseph knew this. The most in every, Joseph knew this the most. In every trial, he was faithful to God and God was faithful to him. But we see, like the conductor of an orchestra, God is orchestrating Joseph's life. And then the rest of the story, we know that in Pharaoh's dream, there was 7 years of plenty, and there were 7 years of famine. And it was the direct actions that Joseph did that eventually reunited him with his family and saved him. It saved his family and his people from starvation. And here we have the final scene where his brothers are bowing down before him, which is a direct fulfillment of the dream that Joseph had when he was 17 years old. In Genesis 50:20, but as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. What you thought was evil for me, God turned it to good. God used the trials. God used the envy, the jealousy, the things that were evil things. God used it in Joseph's life to bring forth that time where he is now second in command in Egypt, saving his family, saving his people, doing the things that God had planned for him all along, but you wouldn't know that going through it. Joseph wouldn't tell you that I'm in God's will as I'm sitting in an Egyptian prison. God wouldn't know, you wouldn't say that I was serving God's will, being a slave in a house, being ripped from my house as a slave. You wouldn't know that Joseph was in God's will, down in a pit, fearing for his life from his own brothers. Yet those things that God used to bring for good. And as you look at your 2024, I can't tell you what season you're in, or when you look to 25, what season will come. But I can tell you that no matter what, God is with you. In Psalms 23:4, a very familiar verse, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and staff, they comfort me. And every one of Joseph, and every time Joseph was bowled down, the Bible was sure to say, but God was with Joseph. The Lord was with him. It is something when we look at 2024, whatever you went through, God was with you for that. Whatever you're going to go through in 2025, God's going to be with you for that. It's something that God never runs away. Whatever Joseph endured, the Bible was sure to say that God was with him. And if 2024 was the year of blessing, and you have that ruler's ring, the Pharaoh's ring, and the garments of fine linen, be thankful. Be thankful that God put you in that position. Be thankful that of all the things that God has done, and have gratitude for where you are. There's a book that speaks about how where we are now in the modern age is so much better than anything in the past. They were saying how, like, would you trade life with the French king, Louis the Sun King, I think Louis the 14th, something like that. But it was something where the fact that the issue is that we have so much more now than the kings of the old days. So you would say, I would want to be a king, I would want to be a ruler, but King Louis didn't have running water. He was still going to the bathroom in a pot, next to his bed. We have running water. We have medicine. Before penicillin, you probably died from a cut. If you didn't get that cut treated, or if it got infected, there really wasn't a whole lot they could do for you. You either had to kind of cut it off, or you were gonna pass. So we look at the things that we go through in life, and there are difficult things, and the worst thing you've been through is the worst thing you've been through. But comparatively, we are so blessed. Comparatively, we have so many things. If you're here, you've got a way to ride. You got transportation to get here. You've got clothes to wear. None of us are starving. We live the blessed life. Even in this world today, there are places in this world where they don't have the blessings that we have. In fact, people are coming in any which way they can to get the blessings of this land, of the American land. They want what we have. And so when we look at things and we say, we look at the things that we don't have, when really we should look at the things we do have. And that whatever we don't have, it far exceeds what we have far exceeds what we don't have. And to be thankful for that. And when I look at this and I see Joseph, he was wanting Manasseh to be the favored one. He was trying to get, Manasseh was the son that God made him forget. He wanted to forget the past. He wanted to kind of move that along. And there's a point of that. There's something about going forward, and I don't have it here in my notes, Sister Angie, but let's do Philippians chapter 3, 13 through 14. If not, I got it here. Brethren, I count not myself to have, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things that are behind, and reaching forth unto the things which are before. 14. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Paul is saying here, I'm going to forget about those. The past is the past. 2024 is done. Whatever was done, whatever I was supposed to do, I'm going to move on. It's time to move on. I'm going to press toward the mark of Jesus. I'm going to make 2025 pressing towards Christ, going towards the things that I want. And what Joseph was saying was that he was saying, hey, I want to look to, I want to go forward. I want to look forward. And there's a time for that. We do need to look forward to those things. But there's also a time where we can't forget where we come from. We can't forget where God brought us from. We have to embrace the Ephraim in our life, the fruitfulness of affliction, perseverance, putting 2025 in total submission and reliance on God. Galatians chapter 6, 7 through 9. And be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, he shall also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall to the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. If we don't become weary, if we don't become tired, we will reap. The things that you put in place last year, decades ago. Joseph's dream was when he was 17 years old. He didn't become a ruler until he was 30. I'm doing the math quick in my head, 12 years? No, 13? 13 years. He waited for a blessing from God. How much time are you willing to wait for your blessing? But it's the thing about it is that you're still sowing. You're still working that ground. You're still planting that seed. You're still watering those seeds. You're still you're weeding your garden. You're making sure that it's clean and clear. You're still persevering. You're still, because you know that in due season, because not every plant's gonna fruit in every time of your life. But when that time of fruiting is come, you're gonna reap. You're gonna reap the harvest. You're gonna reap those blessings. Those things that you're gonna look back in your life and go back and say, man, those 13 years I went through, it got me to this reaping stage. It got me to this place of fruitfulness. And it only comes from affliction. It only comes from, it's not always going to be easy reaping or sowing. It's not always going to be easy sowing. I always read that there was this, they would do these biospheres where, they want to do a self-contained area in where they would build a piece of land, and they would want to see if they could, do a biosphere in another planet. So they would try and grow these trees and these plants in this contained area. And what would happen was that they would plant these trees, and these trees had no roots. The roots wouldn't grow because they were so protected by the biosphere, they were protected in this covering that there was no wind to fight against them. There was nothing that made that tree grow. So trees require pushback. They require the wind. They require something that is going to make those roots grow. That growth only comes as a result of suffering, as a result of trying to think of a better word, not an adversary, but you got to push against it. There's something you got to push against. If life was always easy, we would never grow. We would sit and we would just, but with God, God puts these things in our life to grow us, to make us stronger, to make those roots grow so that we become planted as a tree. But you say, but 2024 took it out of me. I'm done sowing. I'm done sowing this field. I put too much work in. I've waited too long. I'm tired. Isaiah chapter 40, 28 through 31. Hast thou not known? Hast thou not heard? Another thing says, do you not know? Have you not heard that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, he faints not. He's never tired. There is no searching of his understanding. He giveth power to the weary, and to them that have no might he increaseth strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not be faint. So where does our strength come from? It comes from God. It comes from our hope. It comes from waiting on the Lord. Because if we continue to work and we not become weary, we will reap the harvest, but that strength comes from God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Our strength is renewed in God. We get our strength directly from God, from our hope in him. Those that wait upon the Lord, those that submit to God's will, those that are totally reliant on what God has for them, those are the people that's going to have their strength renewed. They're going to be able to not be weary. They're going to be able to continue to sow the seed, to continue to plant the things in their life that one day will grow into something fruitful. That with that affliction, those things that we go through, God's going to take it to a place where you're reaping, and you've saved your family. You saved the people around you. You know, all those trials that you went through that were so hard, and you persevered. You stayed with it. You never gave up. God puts you in a place where you can now feed your child. You can feed your children. You can feed your grandkids. You can feed the next generation. You can save a whole people based on the affliction, the fruitfulness of affliction. So when I say look at 2025, I say let's give it to God. Let's put our reliance, let's put our faith on Him, so that He can give us the strength to continue sowing, to continue pursuing, to continue to go after the things that God has for us. Maybe we end up in a pit in 2025. Maybe some of us get sold into slavery. You know, maybe some of us get put in prison. But at the end of the day, God is still with us. God is always with us. Even in the valley, God is with us. And it's in the valley where we find strength. It's in the valley where we have comfort. It's in the valley where the things that we deepen that relationship. Our roots become stronger. That affliction creates us, that strength in us where, okay, I went through this. There's a time I went through that. You can't get me again. I've already gone through that. You can't tell me God isn't real. You can't tell me the blessings of God that aren't real, because I was there. I was there 10 years ago when God blessed me. It's that blessing of God that will give me strength, that will continue to allow me to pursue, to continue to sow, so that when that season comes of reaping, we are fruitful and can receive from God what He has for us. Thank you.